A big Tuesday welcome into you and lcpioneers.com live, presented by PioStream as we keep you connected with student athletes, coaches, alumni, and different members from throughout the Lewis and Clark College community. Our show now 2 days a week. We broadcast on Tuesday and Thursdays at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time on Facebook Live, and you can also find all of our past shows on our website. Go to lcpioneers.com, click inside the fan zone, or subscribe to our YouTube page as well. That's youtube.com/lcpios. Hi there, everyone. I'm Ryan Goff. I'm the play-by-play broadcaster and director of athletic communications for Lewis and Clark. We're the Pioneers based out of Portland, Oregon, and a member of NCAA Division III with over 430 institutions across the country. Our teams have an opportunity to compete on a national stage at that level, the largest level of all of NCAA, and then, of course, a member of the 9-institution Northwest Conference, so a chance for our student athletes to compete throughout Northwest Oregon and the state of Washington in 19 intercollegiate athletics programs. Since we made the shift, the show starting in March of 2020, since we made the shift when spring 2021 competition began to 2 days a week, we're now excited to welcome in 2 guests per show. So in a little bit, we'll introduce you to Lewis and Clark cross country and track and field junior Connor Robertson. And then coming up after that, Stephen Baker, a senior for baseball, who will be celebrating Senior Day coming up this weekend at Houston Sports Complex, will join us as well. We invite you to get in touch with the show. You can do so by leaving us a comment in our Facebook Live comments. And of course, if you have a suggestion for any future guests, you can do so. Just go to sports@lclark.edu. That is the best email address to reach us. And then we are on Instagram and Twitter as well. So if you can find us there, our handle on both of those platforms, LC Pioneers. We love to hear from you. We also keep you updated on all of the weekend's action. You can go to lcpioneers.com/game day to get a list of all the games that are coming up this week. And then last but not least, again, refer you over to our YouTube page. We have every show of lcpioneers.com live since March 31st, 2020, which was in fact the head coach of cross country, Matthew Burrow, on our YouTube page, available to you in a playlist. All right, let's get things started with today's show. We are excited to welcome in Lewis and Clark track and field junior, cross country junior as well. Connor Robertson joins us this morning. And Connor, I know I'm kind of squeezing in between 11 o'clock classes, right? So I'll definitely be respectful of that and get you to where you need to go. But this has been kind of exciting to see your team back out on the track, get some competition on in the spring 2021 semester. Give us kind of an update. How have things been going throughout this semester so far?
Oh, we've had a really good semester so far. Last semester, we were not able to compete in cross country, but they've cleared us to compete in track. So we've been having a great time. I think 5 or 6 meets already, which has been good. And just about everyone has PR'd in every event that they compete in so far. So
I mean, you can't ask for much better. You
good.
can't ask for much better than that, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you're looking at some pretty big successes so far, and I want to get into yours specifically in just a little bit because I'd love to hear how you feel about your junior year so far. But let's kind of go back to the origin story. Give us an idea what it was about the chance to attend Lewis and Clark that really enticed you.
Let's see. Yeah, I mostly applied to small liberal arts schools just because that's kind of the experience I was looking for with small class sizes and being close to professors and all of that. Lewis and Clark's campus was beautiful, so that already had it pretty high up on my list. And then when I came here to visit and I met the team and the coaches, I just really felt connected with them, and it just was a great community that I wanted to be a part of.
Yeah, and the community is a key thing. Is we'll show some of the pictures from both inside Pamplin Sports Center, from Eldon Fixed Track at Griswold Stadium. That's one thing we like to do on the course of the show, is show everybody who's never been here what this campus looks like. You talk about the look and feel of things, right? And then the community being so close to Portland. Now that you've had a couple of years, right, into your junior year to kind of reflect on being there and living there for the years that you have, what are some things that really stick out? Is it the state park? Is it Portland? Kind of what do you brag about, if you will, when you share what it looks like up here to others?
Yeah, I think Tryon Creek State Park is probably one of the best. It's this huge park with all kinds of trails and a river that goes through the middle of it. It's beautiful. It's about 2 blocks from campus, and we do a lot of runs there. So it's a great place to run, a great place to walk. And I know like geology classes will go there to do labs, and it's beautiful, and it's so close to campus that none of the other schools I looked at had anything quite like it.
Yeah, I mean, it really is a unique opportunity, and it's just located minutes away from Lewis and Clark's College of Arts and Sciences, so the main undergraduate campus. Connor Robertson, our guest on lcpioneers.com live. When you look at the academic programs at Lewis and Clark and the liberal arts education, what have been some of the highlights for you so far, whether it's been within your declared major or elsewhere?
I really enjoyed a class I took last spring. It was called Partial Differential Equations. It was a tough 300 level math class, but it was really interesting, and it just was great because it really brought together what I'd been doing in math and physics at the time. Because a lot of the equations that we would tackle in that class, either I used that same semester in my physics class or in physics classes later on. It was just it was all intertwined, and I really liked that.
Is that you think evident of that liberal arts philosophy is the interconnectivity, the intersectionality of everything? Do you see that across a lot more classes than just even that specific one?
I think I do, yeah. A lot of the different subjects do overlap, either in like math background or just other material. Yeah, another one this semester, a math class and a different physics class that I'm taking both have the same type of logic that I think you would also take in like a logic class. It's just all, yeah, really these same skills you can apply everywhere. And I really like that. I think it's cool.
So you decided to declare as a computer science and mathematics major. Was that a pretty quick decision? Was that something you thought about for a while? Kind of how did you come to choose that as your major?
Yeah, it was something I thought about for a little bit. Originally, when I came here, I was planning to be a physics major because that had been my favorite subject in high school and I did like studying it. But I talked to um, a former athlete named Sean Richardson. He graduated last year, and he was a double major with physics and then our math and computer science major. And I just thought that seemed really interesting because the math CS major that we offer, it's one major, but it covers both math and computer science. So it's a little broader. And then you can do that and double with physics or take a physics minor. And it just lets you cover so many bases. And all of these subjects are interesting to me. So I ended up settling on that just because there's a nice balance of everything that I had liked studying up to this point.
Well, and that sounds like it gives you some nimbleness too. You don't necessarily have to go down one path with that particular major. And so I guess that's a great way to segue to ask you, do you have an idea? I mean, you're in junior year, so you still have clearly some time. Do you have an idea exactly
Yeah.
what you want to do, or is that kind of more up in the air post graduation?
Yeah, post graduation is still a little bit up in the air. I know I want to go somewhere in STEM, but I'm not quite sure if it would be as a computer programmer or mathematician, physics research. It all seems interesting, and I feel like I'll get a little more, I guess, specific in the next year or so. Actually, this summer I'm doing it's called the Rogers Research Program. It's uh, STEM and math, or yeah, I guess it's a STEM research program offered through the school where you can work over the summer with professors, and I think that'll be really interesting.
Yeah, that Rogers program, you even mentioned Sean Richardson has been a participant of that program. In
Yeah.
fact, really excelled in that program in the past. Coming up during our break, too, we'll share, I think one of your former teammates, Sarah Starnes, was a member of that program. We'll share that video that talks about the Brown Bag Research Program. Connor Robertson is our guest on lcpioneers.com, presented by PioStream. You can check us out Tuesday and Thursday at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time on Facebook Live. And Connor, you talked about the track season so far. And every time I pull up TFRS, which is this reporting system for these times, every single meet, it seems like I'm either writing about someone who's in the top 5 in the conference or setting a new PR or even ranking, like Frankie Reed recently moved in the top 15 nationally in an event. So you talked about that kind of at the top. Let's focus specifically on you. How do you feel like your track season has gone? What have been some of the highlights for you so far?
This has definitely been one of the best track seasons of my life because in the past couple years, I've just been battling injuries on and off, and then COVID. I've never been able to string together a few really solid meets in a row. But this season, I PR'd in the 800 once, and that was my first time PRing in it since I believe junior year of high school. And then the 2 meets after that, I dropped another second or two each time, and now I've qualified for conference in the 800 meter. So yeah, this past month or so has just been, I've been really improving every week, and it's felt great.
So then, what do you attribute that to? I mean, you clearly have talked about this is not just a you thing, right? The whole team is having this kind of season so far. To what do you
Yeah.
attribute some of the success?
The team culture has definitely changed a bit because this year we have, I think, 12 freshman boys. They're, we got a lot of new people, so the team's a lot larger than we're used to and a lot more competitive. So just it's nice having more people to do workouts with, more people to run with, and we all just, I guess, push each other a little harder than we have in past years.
Yeah,
So yeah,
it's
more
been
competitive. We're all improving.
yeah, it's been really impressive so far, and you're so close to coming up on the Northwest Conference Championships. Clearly, it's going to be here before
Yeah.
you know it. I think the only other question I was curious about is, in fact, we just showed some of your pictures of you competing. Without a cross country season as a distance runner ahead of your track and field season, was that really unusual, or is it not that much different in the scheme of things? Describe that for us.
It was a little weird not having the competition, but we were still training just as hard as we normally would. And we did a couple of time trials throughout the year just as a team. I think we ran a 5K and a 15. Yeah, we were in training and we did some time trials to try to simulate competitions. But yeah, it definitely, I didn't feel it as much as I think some of the other guys did. Because coming here as a freshman, training for 4 or 5 months and not getting to compete just seems kind of weird. And I've got a few years of cross country just before this. So I didn't really miss out on that experience. And then I'm actually more of a mid distance runner, anyways. I do the 800 and the 1500. So missing out on a little bit of cross country training doesn't hurt me as much as it would for someone who does a longer distance race.
Well, thanks for that insight. I mean, that's actually good thoughts too with that mid distance difference, as you mentioned. So we'll keep tabs on things. I know you have a class that you need to run to, so we're going to let you go. Connor Robertson, thank you so much for spending some time with us today on lcpioneers.com live.
Thank you for having me on. It was nice to talk to you.
Likewise. That's junior of track and field and cross country Connor Robertson on the show. And that's a good point, right? That 800 and the 1500, that may not be as big of a deal than those who are racing the 5 and 10K. But that said, I was just curious, right? Because I always imagined those, especially who get into collegiate athletics, because I was certainly this way in high school, was you get into kind of these rhythms, right? You know what to expect after you've done it freshman year or you've done it sophomore year. You kind of know exactly what works well for you getting ready for junior and senior. I remember that mostly entering, fall football camp, right? That was the one thing that I've lived. I've never done cross country nor track and field. And so I was curious, like, hey, as I'm looking at these pictures on the screen, what was that experience like to say, hey, usually we have competition. This is really a time for us to prime things up. But there's also fall track and field practice too. And so it was kind of a curious insight I had, and I was appreciative of Connor for giving us that look. And then, of course, as he described the academic experience at Lewis and Clark too, that nimbleness, not only within the classes, but within the program, still entering the later stages of junior year spring semester, Connor's not laser lock focused on anything, but it also sounds like that is intriguing to Connor as well. So a really good insight. I love talking about the computer science and mathematics major too, because it has that flexibility. We have had a lot of good discussions on the show, not only with current student athletes, but also alumni of that program too. So big things coming from Connor in track and field this year. In fact, let's preview what's coming up this weekend. We still have Stephen Baker ahead on the show, senior from Lewis and Clark baseball in just a bit as well. But let's preview what's up ahead for Lewis and Clark athletics. And of course, you can find this schedule on our website by going to lcpioneers.com and clicking on the games tab. You can also just type in lcpioneers.com/this week. We post a lot of these things on our social media, so that's an easy way to find it as well by going to our social media. And that includes Twitter, which is LC Pioneers, as well as going to our Instagram, which is LC Pioneers. Our handles are pretty unified across the entire spectrum of social media. And if you ever want to find any of our social media, go to lcpioneers.com/social, and we have those locations posted for you as well. All right, let's kind of look at what happened last weekend for Lewis and Clark athletics. Pretty successful weekend, all things considered, for Lewis and Clark softball. Baseball lost all of their games up in Tacoma, taking on Pacific Lutheran, but the softball team split and now really have their sights set on the Northwest Conference tournament. The top 4 teams in the Northwest Conference standings will compete for the Northwest Conference Championship and the automatic qualifier to the NCAA Division III tournament. Lewis and Clark already wins this season over the conference leaders, Linfield and George Fox. So they're in pretty good position. We'll have to take care of things this weekend against Puget Sound in Portland. The men's, like I said, the baseball team, not as successful on this last road trip up to PLU. A better day Sunday, certainly. They will also host Puget Sound and celebrate Senior Day on the final day of those series. Right now, those are scheduled for Saturday and Sunday games for both softball and baseball. Of course, weather is always a factor with Diamond Sports, so we will let you know if there are any changes. You can go to lcpioneers.com for more information on that. Congratulations to Lewis and Clark Golf. Big weekend for Cameron Ford, who you see on your screen there, finished 9th overall at the Northwest Conference Championship, which is the final of 3 events that make up the Northwest Conference champion for golf. There's the Fall Classic, the Spring Classic, and the championship this year, of course, with all competition in the spring semester. They played all 3 of those tournaments within a 4-week span. It concluded in Spokane, Washington. Ford finishes 9th to lead the way for the women's team. Eli Jamison had a very nice tournament for the men. In fact, a very good second round for Jamison. Finishes in the top 10 for Lewis and Clark. So pretty big weekend, top 15 for Lewis and Clark from Jamison. Ben Welker plays his last ever match for Lewis and Clark. Jamison was 5 strokes better in round number 2, had one of the best improvements, in fact, on day 2 for Lewis and Clark. Both tennis teams just one match last weekend. In fact, it was really cool because the women's team plays the first ever uncovered on-campus tournament at the Lewis and Clark tennis courts. We usually call it the LNC Tennis Dome, but because of an ice storm that happened earlier on in the semester, the dome is no longer available. So primarily have been playing in Vancouver, Washington at Club Green Meadows, but it was nice enough weather. It was Senior Day to celebrate Madeline Landerfelt, so Lewis and Clark women's tennis hosted PLU on the LNC tennis courts, and as far as we could do in our research, that is the first outdoor on-campus event since the mid-90s for Lewis and Clark tennis. So that was pretty big and exciting things for them. The men get a 9-0 win at PLU. Hermes Adia, Christian Peeve, that whole entire team continues to roll. A 9-0 win over PLU for men's tennis. And then rowing was out and competed against PLU. Some very good showings from the men's team and the women's team as well. And then track and field, we kind of had Connor on to talk about that, but they hosted a couple of teams at Eldon Fix Track at Griswold Stadium. It was pretty exciting things there for track and field. You can find more information on our website by going to lcpioneers.com and get this week's game schedule by going there as well. You can either click the black games button at the very top next to live, or just type in lcpioneers.com/this week to get the latest game schedule. We're going to step aside, and as we do, we will play that information on the research program, the Brown Bag Lunch, the Rogers Research Program that Lewis and Clark athletes and students alike have a chance to participate in. Sarah Starnes, a former member of women's track and field, was one of the participants in that program. So we'll play that for you during our break. And then when we come back, we'll talk to senior from Lewis and Clark baseball. We'll talk to Stephen Baker on what it's like getting ready for Senior Day coming up this Sunday. We'll do that when we come back on lcpioneers.com live.
I'm Ann Bentley. I'm an associate professor of chemistry, and in this research group, I supervise the 2 students working in the Rogers program this summer in our lab. The Brown Bag experience is a good chance for students to get experience presenting their work that they've done in the lab, especially to an audience that's not technical.
What's intriguing about the Brown Bag experience is it incorporates all of the Rogers program. So I'm able to hear people in the psychology department and what research they're doing, but it also gives us the opportunity to share our research with the greater science community at Lewis and Clark. And for incoming students, the summer program is really beneficial for getting opportunity in research. So I've had the opportunity for research in the past, but other students may not have the same opportunities. So it's nice to work in a professional lab setting and potentially have the opportunity to publish a paper, which looks really good moving on into doing professional research out in the field.
The students grow a lot during the summer in their ability to learn the techniques and apply the techniques and suggest their own ideas for what could come next and interpret their data. It's just a big, usually if they haven't done research before, they learn a lot in that short period of time.
Welcome back to lcpioneers.com live, presented by PioStream, as we keep you connected with student athletes, coaches, alumni, and different members from throughout the Lewis and Clark College community now 2 days a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. You can find all of our shows at lcpioneers.com/live and archived inside the fan zone on our website. As I mentioned, 2 guests per episode. First, we had Connor Robertson from track and field and cross country join us. And now we are excited to be welcomed in by Stephen Baker, who's a senior for Lewis and Clark baseball. In fact, celebrating Senior Day coming up with their final homestand against Puget Sound this weekend. Stephen, thanks for taking some time for us to talk about, 4 years now at Lewis and Clark and into your senior year. We got some grad school news from you, so I'm excited to talk to you about that as well. Let's kind of summarize baseball so far. We were recapping the weekend of Lewis and Clark athletics. Y'all were up at PLU. Describe how the season's been going so far for you and some of the highlights so far.
First of all, thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here. So definitely a very big highlight this year was sweeping Linfield and setting some Lewis and Clark records there. That was a lot of fun. This past weekend, definitely not the kind of weekend we wanted to have. This season is not quite shaping up how we originally planned. And I think some of that has to do with we've had a lot of injuries, a lot of really untimely injuries, which could be due to the COVID schedule. We're now playing an extra game every weekend, which is, putting a little extra strain on us. But preparing for if the weather holds up, preparing for a fun senior weekend coming up this weekend. And I hope for the rest of the season.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about this upcoming weekend, right? And what the year's been like for you, in terms of the highlights going into a Senior Day. Like, this is a big moment, right? And weather's always a factor. I always say that those who play diamond sports in the Pacific Northwest, I mean, I know you love your sport because you choose to compete in some of the iffiest early season weather. But when it's beautiful in Portland, it's also amazing. Yeah. Kind of describe that, coming from California, what was it like to adjust to the Pacific Northwest, and what are some of the things that you've enjoyed about that climate so far?
Yeah. One of the things is that around here, it's no matter what the weather's like, could be snowing or beautiful, it's still beautiful. Like, the campus looks amazing under snow, and when the sun comes out, it feels amazing. So and playing back in California, it was like if there's rain in the forecast, it's we're canceling. But now it's like it's pushing through. It's like an extra challenge. It's fun. Yeah. And it's for both teams. So it's like who wants it more. Yeah.
And baseball, of course, you have a unique perspective too, because I've seen you in the field. I've seen you, hitting extra base hits, and I've seen you on the mound, right? So you're a very versatile player. What is it like to be in that role where you know that at any given game you might be inserted somewhere, or that you might be trusted to, do long relief? You've kind of spanned that so far in your career. What's that like?
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. It keeps you. You have to stay ready for every kind of situation. I think the biggest thing is staying not only physically ready, and making sure you're stretching and staying warm between innings and things like that, but also staying mentally in the game. So taking like mental at bats in case I'm okay, would I swing at this pitch? What am I trying to do in this at bat in this situation if I was hitting? Or paying attention to what the opposing hitters are doing as well. Okay, this guy is, he's getting fooled by this certain pitch or something like that. And you can get a lot of the information from the scouting report as well, that we, do every week. But yeah, it's a lot staying like mentally ready, staying in the game. And it's fun just, because at any moment, like especially as a relief pitcher, it can be like, okay, you have like 5 minutes to get warm, and you're coming in the game, and there's going to be 2 runners on, and you have and don't let them score. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun being in those like high pressure situations, where your performance is really matters, and you have to be dialed in right when you get in there.
Stephen Baker, I guess, on lcpioneers.com live, senior pitcher for Lewis and Clark. And then, like we do, we talk about the origin story. I want to get in some academics as well. What was it about the opportunity to compete and get your education at Lewis and Clark that drew you up to Portland, Oregon?
Yeah, the opportunity to play high level baseball, competitive baseball, and also get an amazing education, it was impossible to pass up. Being able to work really closely with professors, with those small class sizes, they're always available to talk. And I've even been able to do an independent study opportunities where I will, take on a subject that's not offered at it's not offered, it's not going to be traditionally offered in any class at any institution, but I can work one-on-one with a professor and learn about this thing that I'm really interested in that's maybe a little more niche. And yeah, it's been a fantastic opportunity as well. Yeah.
When you look at the degree program that you chose specifically at Lewis and Clark, what was it about that program? Introduce us to it, and what it was about that made you decide that, hey, this is the one that I'm going to pursue.
So I have finally settled on a double major in physics and math and a minor in computer science. So when I first got to Lewis and Clark, I was pretty set on computer science. I was going to be computer science major, and but I was also interested in physics. So I was thinking, oh, I'll get a minor in physics, as that'll be, that's something, a subject I'm really interested in. But I was thinking my job was going to be computer science. But I kept taking more classes, and realized that my like of physics was a love of physics, and also a lot of the math prerequisites I found I was really enjoying. I absolutely love the math department, the professors and the fellow students that I work with. The kind of environment there of it's it's a pretty small community, and we're pretty tight knit. We have a class together, and it's like, all right, we're gonna figure, it's a hard homework or a hard project or something, we're gonna figure it out together and work through it. And yeah, so I fell in love with the math department and math and physics, and it turned out that computer science turned into a minor. But I don't love computer science any less. It's also a lot of fun. Yeah, and a great department too.
Well, and so elaborate on that for me. That seems like a staple, right, of a liberal arts education, is you kind of have that 4-year window to figure out exactly what you're going to do. And it sounds like maybe you took advantage of that to its full capacity. What was that journey like?
Yeah, it wasn't until I think fall of this year, fall of my senior year, that I finally settled on this configuration. And yeah, it was really nice to be able to have that freedom to kind of go back and forth between and kind of figure out what it was that I was really interested in, what I really wanted to do. But yeah, it was, it wasn't any kind of hassle, oh, I have to take this class over the summer or something like that. It was like, okay, this is what you want to do. You got to just take, these couple classes instead of these classes, and we can make it happen. Yeah, the counselors and both faculty advisors and the counselors available at Lewis and Clark are super helpful. And you just tell them where you want to be, what you want to do, and they'll make sure that there's a path there for you to make that happen.
Stephen Baker's our guest on lcpioneers.com live. You can check us out Tuesday and Thursdays at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. Just bookmark lcpioneers.com/live. Stephen is a pitcher and utility player. All over the place for Lewis and Clark. Primarily, I've seen you in the pitching role this year so far. And I bring that up only to say that you've had both that experience in athletics and in academics, and now you transition into your next chapter, which is going to be graduate school. Tell us about the opportunity you'll embark in after Lewis and Clark.
Yeah, I am extremely excited and a little bit nervous. I will be going to USC for graduate school next year, starting my graduate journey. I will be studying astronautical engineering. So combining all the physics and math and computer science I've learned here and applying it to essentially rocket science, I guess. So that's going to be that's going to be an exciting journey. Yeah, that's good. That's going to be a lot of fun.
What is it like to figure out grad school while doing all of the other demands of a Division III student athlete? Give us an inside glimpse on how that process works.
Yeah, definitely. My advice would be to do a lot of the work, like taking the entrance test, the GRE, and researching, talking to professors or grad schools over the summer, which is what I did, and that was very helpful. Um, yeah, it's been a roller coaster. I applied to my plan was to apply to a lot of schools that were hard to get into, and then play the statistics and hope, because all you need is one. Um, but yeah, that was extremely exciting to get that acceptance. And the professor I'll be working with there seems amazing, and the grad students I'll be working with there, I've been able to talk to them, and it seems like it's a great culture there. And I think that Lewis and Clark has really helped me prepare for that really well. The Rogers Research Program, which we mentioned a couple times on the show today, I think was instrumental. That summer that COVID first hit, everything was canceled, and with grad school, it's so important to have some kind of research under your belt. And I was super, super thankful, super lucky that there was a Raj program available that I could do remotely over the summer and get that research experience to put that on my applications. And I think that was a tremendous help. So not only like the great education, but like those special opportunities at Lewis and Clark were a huge help.
And we'll do the same thing we did with Connor, fellow Diamond Sports student athlete Frankie Warden from softball. We have a little spot with her. We'll talk about that after your interview is concluded, which this is my final question for you. The culmination of 4 years being with the same group, with the senior class of baseball. What's it like as you say goodbye to Houston Sports Complex at the end of this weekend?
Yeah, I've forged some amazing friendships. These guys, yeah, these are my brothers. It's very bittersweet. It's gone way too fast. Um, that's for sure. It still sounds weird to say that I'm a senior and I'm going to be leaving here. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and it's going to be amazing to celebrate what we've been able to do here, and all that. Yeah. Um, but yeah, I love these guys, and it's going to be a good opportunity to celebrate them. Yeah.
Well, we look forward to it. Right now, still scheduled Saturday and Sunday. All the updates at lcpioneers.com. Stephen Baker, thank you so much for taking some time out to talk to us today on lcpioneers.com live.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. That's Stephen Baker joining us on the show. Yeah, the last series of his career happens this weekend. Puget Sound's coming to town, and as Stephen mentioned too, this year the baseball format is one of the formats that has been probably affected the most, arguably, other than the sports that weren't able to compete in this upcoming or this current academic year, because baseball is now playing a 4-game series each weekend. It's usually 3 9-inning games, a doubleheader on Saturday and 1 on Sunday. This year the format's been flipped. Well, not even flipped. It's definitely just been kind of re-engineered. You play a 9-inning game and then a 7-inning game in doubleheader formats both days. So you're playing a total of 4 games. Each day you're playing 16 innings, if not longer, with extras in a doubleheader format on Saturday and Sunday. You add in, the weather that definitely does happen, although the weather has been fantastic in the Portland area, certainly for the last couple of weeks. So there's got to be some nimbleness there too. It's been fun to hear him talk about that and kind of highlight some of the benefits of that, some of what's neat about being a student athlete on the diamond in the Pacific Northwest, but then certainly the weather can play an impact. So we'll see what happens. There's a lot of potential, but we'll keep you updated on our website. Go to lcpioneers.com/thisweek for more information, and be sure to check for all of our sports that are competing right now. Go to the bottom of the page. All the information regarding spectator information at the bottom of each schedule on our website, lcpioneers.com. And it's also at the bottom of that specific link at lcpioneers.com/thisweek. So a lot of fun. We'll do it again on Thursday. We are expecting the head coach of Lewis and Clark Golf, both the men's and women's program, James Yen, to join us just on the heels of their final competition of the year as they competed the rest of the Northwest Conference in Spokane, Washington at the NWC Championship. We'll talk about Cameron Ford, all conference honors, I suspect, for Cameron, who had a great postseason. But all three events finished top 10, and including a 9th place finish at this last weekend's Northwest Conference Championship. And then, of course, Ben Welker, a senior for Lewis and Clark men's golf, played his last competition for the Pios. So we'll talk to Coach Yen, and we'll have, we suspect, another guest as well on Thursday. You can always bookmark that page, lcpioneers.com/live, to see our full schedule. And then check out youtube.com/lcpios. Subscribe there, especially coming into the 2021-22 academic year. Not only will lcpioneers.com live continue, but we'll also have more content on our YouTube page as well. So for Connor Robertson and Stephen Baker, I'm Ryan Goff. Thank you so much for having fun with us today. We will again show off the Rogers Research Program with the story of Frankie Warden and what Frankie, class of 2020 softball student athlete, got out of that program as we send you to break. And we'll see you again on Thursday for more of lcpioneers.com live, presented by PioStream. Goodbye, everybody.
I'm Casey Jones, and I teach a range of classes: general chemistry, organic chemistry, and also some advanced classes. And I have a research lab that currently I have 4 students working with me as part of the Rogers program. The summer experience is a way to get really deeply involved in the science that is here and be able to start to define what might be what you want to do next. So the brown bag gives our students a chance to explain their research and really show the context and the application of what they're doing to a very broad range of students and faculty.
It's interesting to be able to communicate to other scientists what your work is, and it forces you to learn how to talk about your subject so that not only experts in your field can understand it, but others can understand it as well, which I just believe is a good life skill.
To talk about your research in a way that anybody can understand it really is a valuable experience, and it's something that you don't get a lot of practice for except in these contexts, because oftentimes you're giving a presentation to a classroom filled with people who know basically the same things that you do, but in a brown bag, you have to be able to explain and provide motivation for everything that you're working on and why it's important and why it's relevant to be studying.